handsome, isn't he? Why have I told you that this is America's most violent rapist, murderer, and necrophile? Ted Bundy, born Theodore Robert Cowell. He was born on November 24, 1946 in Burlington, Vermont in a shelter for single mothers. Leonard Louise Cowell, his mother, was from a wealthy family, and Ted's father has still not been identified, because Louise later admitted that she had an affair with a sailor. Ted lived with his grandparents for the first 3 years, and they passed him off as their child because having a child out of wedlock was highly discouraged at the time. Maybe this one found out about his origin and harbored a grudge against his mother, although in his interviews he speaks only positively about her. Everyone tells about his behavior in adolescence in different ways. Someone says that he was wandering the streets and looking for photos of naked women in trash cans. Someone said that he likes to read detective novels and magazines in which mutilated, wounded corpses' bodies are very strongly shown. This one denied it. Ted himself did not understand why to contact people, and said, "I did not know what makes certain things meaningful. I did not know what makes people want to be friends. I did not know what makes people attractive to each other. I did not know what underlies social interaction." He changed several universities, changed many jobs, and eventually decided to study psychology and quickly became a favorite of teachers. In 1971, he got a job at the Seattle Suicide Crisis Center helpline. In 1972, Bundy graduated from the University of Psychology and kind of stood in the way of a famous doctor. During one of his trips to California, he met a girl named Stephanie and started dating her. But at that time he already had another girlfriend and was dating them in parallel. It is not known exactly how many people he killed and when he started committing the crime, because everyone is told different theories. What is known for sure is that on January 4, 1974, Bundy entered the room of 18-year-old Karen Sparks in the University District of Seattle. She was a dancer and a student at the University of Washington. He hit her on the head with a metal rod from a frame and raped her with a delator. There was blood everywhere. She suffered extensive internal injuries and still has very severe hearing problems to this day. And later, 10 days later, the girl woke up, but she didn't remember anything. Less than a month later, on the night of January 31 to February 1, Bundy commits another crime a couple of blocks from the Barnes Park's house. A greenhouse in a house rented by 4 female students, including Linda Hillis. She was his classmate. He gagged her, tied her up and knocked her down, and then raped her. He put a pillowcase on her head, wrapped her in a sheet, and also took her backpack, jeans, a white blouse, and boots and took her away. She worked at a radio station, but the neighbors didn't hear anything, and the next morning they thought she'd just left and hadn't even noticed she was missing. The room, by the way, was perfectly cleaned, and she just literally disappeared without a trace. It also turned out that his cousin was acquainted with Hilly. His credit card statement showed that he had been following her for several days before the abduction. The wives disappeared once a month. Bundy had a Volkswagen Juke car, and he really liked to pretend to be helpless, for example, with his arm bandaged, and asked the girls to help him load books into the car, for example. He looked very charming, and everyone agreed to help him without a second thought. Bundy took out the victims, mocked the already dead bodies, left them, and then could return a few days later and re-rate the body. He'd also liked to cut off heads or then make up those heads, and liked to disguise his already dead victims. The victims went missing, and no one really looked for them, because everyone thought, oh well, the girl just went on a spree, went somewhere with her boyfriend. The police already knew that Ted was driving a Volkswagen Juke with a bandaged arm. The combination occurred on July 14 when Ted Bundy stole 2 women in broad daylight. It happened on a crowded beach. 5 women described the abductor as an attractive man in a tennis uniform with a bandaged arm in a Volkswagen Juke, and he introduced himself to them as Ted Bundy. Ted asked to load the sailboat itself onto his car. 4 girls, and they turned out to be, and one went with him. And when she saw that the sailboat wasn't there and asked what the problem was, he said he needed to be picked up from his parents first. The girl agreed and got into the car. 4 hours later, he also stole an 18-year-old girl from the beach, who left her sunbathing friends to visit the bathroom. He raped them and killed one girl in front of the other. But by the way, he later retracted these statements. Ted's sketch was sent out to all TV stations. They knew his name, they knew his car. Do you remember that he had a girlfriend named Klopfer? Yes, one of those 2. At first, the gang just leaves her after several years of relationships and says bye-bye. I'm going to another city. We're attracted by his incredible similarity on this poster, as well as his name, card, and goes to the police. At that time, the police were already checking everyone with the name Ted Bundy. The police say without any verification that he is a wonderful good man and a great student, and they don't even check on him. That's not even half of his crimes, let alone the fact that he escaped from prison several times. People began to find the remains of victims in different parts of the city. Some remains have not yet been discovered. In August 1974, Bundy enrolled in law and came to Salt Lake City. Then bam, another murder of a girl already happens in this city. The clip for girl from the last part. I told you, calls the police again and says, well, what's up? It's definitely him. The police said again, no, that's a handsome guy. What are you? Then they start killing one by one. He raped one girl and threw her into the river. He killed another accidentally when he tried to silence her. In general, he said that he was trying to limit his pathological desires, only by raping victims, but not by killing. But something wasn't working out very well for him. On the evening of October 18, the sheriff's 17-year-old daughter was returning home. She went to talk to her friend at the restaurant, who was dumped by her boyfriend, and then returned home after 22 hours. 9 days later, her body was found in a park that was 30 kilometers from Salt Lake City. An autopsy revealed that she was still alive 7 days after the attack. The bodies of 2 more women were also found. The bodies were completely beaten, raped even in the anus. The girls themselves were strangled with nylon stockings. Do you know what the scariest thing is? One girl, 18-year-old Cara Derrick, escaped from Ted Bundy in the suburbs of Salt Lake City. She arrived at the mall, left her car, and went for a walk. I stopped at the bookstore to look at books, and there, Bundy came up to her in an officer's uniform, introduced himself as the sheriff, and said that someone had tried to steal her car. Bundy asked me to get in the car with him and go fill out an application at the police station. And the girl agreed. She was of course surprised that the policeman was going to in an old Volkswagen Beetle, but I thought he might be undercover. As soon as the girl got into the car, Bundy began to drive at full speed, turning onto a street. The girl tried to escape from the car, but he stopped her, ran with the scrap, trying to hit her. There was a fierce battle going on, and he handcuffed her hands. In the end, the girl punched him in the groin and ran away, picked up by a passing car. The police already had everything, but they couldn't do anything. And Ted kept killing every day. He was first arrested in August 1975 when a policeman was driving and saw Ted's car parked on the side of the road. He did not stop on the orders of the highway patrol, but began to drive, and eventually, when he stopped, a foot mask, a mask made of tights, and scrap trash bags were found in his car. Handcuffs and ice axe and other items that are not used for very good things. A nice policeman took him away. Ted was released on bail just a short time later. Ted himself says that when they searched his apartment, they did not find the photos of his victims that he took, which he hid in the back room. Tanya also put Bundy under round-the-clock surveillance and went to his girlfriend Klepfer to ask her a little bit. Yes, I told them that I found a cast, a butcher knife, and a pair of crutches at Bundy's. She said that Bundy was always in debt, and one day, when she was trying to figure out where the new TV came from, he said that if she told anyone, he would wring his neck. She also said that she often woke up in her sleep, and he was sitting under her blanket with a flashlight and examining her body. They also found out that Bundy was not in the crypt on the nights when the girls disappeared. In September, Bundy sold his car to a Medville resident, and it was confiscated and disassembled and examined. Hair belonging to the murdered girls was found in the car, and it was no coincidence. An important fact is that many of the girls who saw Bundy could not identify him afterwards. Here, witnesses from Bountiful identify him as a stranger, who later caused one girl, Deborah Kent, to disappear during a theatrical production. But there was not enough evidence against Bundy, and he was released on bail again with $15,000. On February 23, 1976, Bundy went on trial for the kidnapping of Carol DiRanci. On the advice of his lawyer, he exercised the right to a jury trial and was found guilty of kidnapping and assault. Bundy was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Later in October, he was found hiding in the prison yard behind bushes, and he was holding an escape kit in his hands. These are road maps, flight schedules, and a social security card. Because of this, he spent several days in solitary confinement. In 1987, he was transferred to unwed. After that, he was also charged with the murder of another girl. On June 7, 1977, he was transferred from prison to court, and he decided to defend himself. They did not put handcuffs or shackles on him. During the break, he asked to visit the library to verify the materials of the hearing. He jumped out of the window from the second floor and disappeared. He got out of the city through the mountain. He lived in a hunting hut near the peak for several days, and then wandered through the forest exhausted for 2 days. Then he broke into a hunting trailer near Lake Maroon, stole food there. He stole a car. By the way, he didn't know how to do that. He was just looking for cars where people have forgotten their keys. Cooled down, he drove back to Aspen, was on the run for 6 days, was spotted by 2 police officers and arrested again. When he was placed in prison, he immediately began to prepare an escape plan. He got a hacksaw blade, started making a hole in the ceiling. And during those 6 months he saved up $500 in cash. The money was brought to him by visitors and Carol Ann Boom. The girl has always been in love with him. Later she will become his wife, already being imprisoned. Ted was very thin, and so he climbed into this hole in the ceiling. And several times he tried to escape. The guard complained to other people that he hears some kind of stirring in Ted's cell at night, but no one checked it. On December 30, Bundy used books to create the appearance that he was supposedly lying and sleeping, and escaped through the ceiling. He entered the prison governor's apartment, took his clothes, and escaped. Bundy stole a car, but later the car broke down, and so a passing motorcyclist gave him a ride. He flew from Denver to Chicago. Bundy moved from Chicago to Michigan, stole a car there, and drove to Atlanta. There he boarded a bus bound for Tallahassee. It's named Hagen rented a room near the University of Florida. The criminal himself said that he wanted to stop his murders and get a job, but his only opportunity to work at a construction site fell through because the boss asked for at least a driver's license to find out Ted's identity. Since he couldn't give his driver's license, he started stealing food, taking credit cards from wallets left at in the grocery carts. A week after arriving in Tallahassee, Ted sneaked through the back door of a university dorm in Florida. When he entered the room, he saw Marguerite Bowman there. He took a log, brutally beat her, stripped her naked, and strangled the girl with tights. After that, he entered Lisa Levy's room, raped her, beat her with the same log, bit off her nipple, bit her hard on the buttock, and raped her, including Annalie, with a hairspray bottle, and later strangled her with tights. In the next room, he attacked Katie Kleiner, fracturing her skull, severely injuring her shoulder and breaking her jaw. Karen Chandler broke her head, knocked out her teeth, shattered her finger, and broke her jaw. All this was happening within earshot of 30 people, but no one heard anything. Leaving the dorm, Bundy ran to the house that the 3 students rented. He entered the room of student Cheryl Thomas through the window, beat her, dislocating her shoulder, breaking her jaw and skull, undressed her and masturbated. And the only thing that saved her from death was that her neighbors returned, heard the noise, and Bundy got scared and ran away. Cheryl survived, but partially lost her hearing and damaged her vestibular apparatus, which put a definite end to her career as a dancer. On February 8, Bundy traveled to Jacksonville in a stolen van. On the same day, he drove 97 kilometers west of Lake City. There he killed a 12-year-old girl, whose mummified remains were discovered 7 weeks after her death. Later, Bundy started having some financial problems, and he stole a car and drove to Tallahassee. There it happens again that the officer wanted to stop him, check his documents, and Bundy started driving. Later, he finally stopped, and the officer began checking his documents. Bundy kicked him in the leg and tried to run away, but thank God he stopped him. I found all these credit cards in the car, the cards, the stolen TV, and on the way, Ted Bundy, the detainee, said to the officer, "It would be better if you killed me." So, the trial, everyone filmed it. It was the first trial that was broadcast on TV. Ted was offered 75 years in prison for confessing to the murders instead of the death penalty, but he refused. There were a lot of trials. There was a lot of evidence against Bundy, and many girls continued to disbelieve that this maniac could commit such murders and came to his defense. And so, during the final stage of the trial, Carol Ann Boone was giving exculpatory testimony, and Bundy unexpectedly proposed to her. He hoped that he would not be executed on the day of her proposal. Boone accepted the offer, and Bundy announced that they were now married. On February 10, 1980, Bundy was sentenced to death. The third time when the verdict was announced, Bundy jumped up from his chair and roared, "Tell the jury they're wrong." No one could talk to him, but one journalist did. Ted Bundy started talking about himself in the third person. According to him, sexual violence satisfied the need to have complete control over its victims. For the first time, he killed to avoid capture, but later the murders became part of the adventure. The decision of life has become a way to finally master the victim. Sexual assault, physically possessing her remains. He did not commit murders out of revenge and a thirst for violence. It was possession. The victims became part of the gang, and the places where he killed them were sacred. In the summer of 1984, Bundy was assaulted And his cellmates confirmed that it was a gang rape, although he himself does not admit it. He also told how he returned several times to the burial sites of his victims to lie down and have sex with them again, until the body rotted completely. He kept the heads at home like sex toys. And when the heads finally decomposed, he either threw them out of the woods or burned them in the fireplace of his girlfriend Clefby. By the way, Garen Boom gave birth to his child. She was born in 1981 or 1982. Her name was Rosie, when Ted was already in custody. On January 24, 1989, Ted Bundy was electrocuted, and on the eve of his execution, he even thought about suicide because he did not want to give the state a chance to admire his death. When Ted was taken away to the hearse, a huge number of people gathered around him, who were having fun and rejoicing. That's how a very smart man it would seem, just ruined his life. Even the lawyer who tried him told him that he would not mind working with him. He is very talented and smart for his age. That's such a terrible story. Thanks a lot for watching. Be careful, healthy and happy. Subscribe to my channel and bye-bye.